Good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. Madam Clerk, call to order. Roll call.
Good evening. Roll call, please. Mayor Truppman,
Here.
Vice Mayor Tudor,
Here.
Commissioner Build,
Unfortunately, he was out for an emergency. Will not be here this evening.
Commissioner Johnson Sardella, Commissioner Ross.
Here. We all stand for the pledge, please. At this time, are there any deletions, or withdrawals to the agenda? None have? Then we'll go ahead and start with presentations. First, it is my great pleasure to welcome our new interim chief, Luis Cabrera. If he please come to the podium. Before he does, I'm going to ask the following individuals to stand. I hope I do not miss anybody. The chief has a number of years of experience, and as you can see, many of his colleagues have come out today to support him. I would like to recognize those individuals. We have the Chief of Police from Golden Beach. If you'd stand, please. We also have the Chief of Miami Beach. If please stand as well. We have the Chief from the City of Miami. Could please stand as well. Chief from North Miami. Yep. And we have a number of colleagues. It would take a lot of time for me to call them all, but if they would all stand in support, please. Thank you. If you all stand. Interim Chief, we go ahead and swear him in first, or would you like to speak first?
Let's go ahead and
swear him
the
in?
chief in first. We're actually just want to take a moment to say we are honored to have you with us. You're part of the family, and welcome. We look forward to working with you for a long time. Thank you for joining us, Chief.
Thank you.
It is indeed our honor, and we're very grateful. And on that, without further ado, we'd like to go ahead and swear him in. Madam Clerk.
Raise your heart. Prayer.
I,
State your name.
Luis Cabrera,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect,
protect,
and
defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and the state of Florida
and the state of Florida
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
both foreign and domestic,
both foreign and domestic,
and I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
and that I am entitled to hold office
and I am entitled to hold the office
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
and I will faithfully perform all duties
and I will faithfully perform all duties
of the office of Chief of Police
of the office of Chief Police
for the Village of Biscayne Park Police Department,
for the Village of Biscayne Park Police Department,
of which I am about to enter,
in which I'm about to enter,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Chief, I know you have a few words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to begin by stating that I am humbled to have the opportunity to serve the residents of Biscayne Park. Public service is something that I have a passion for. There is nothing more rewarding than knowing that I have improved the quality of life for others. I am also a strong believer that a positive message that you send is more valuable than not having a message at all. With over 30 years of law enforcement experience in the City of Miami Police Department, I have never lost perspective that the residents were my most important asset. My goal at the Village of Biscayne Park will be to institute police services that focus on community priorities. I am aware that traffic enforcement, directed patrolling, police visibility, community police, and community policing will be an essential component to driving positive changes. It will be my commitment to institute the following: leadership, rapport with the residents, employee development, superior service delivery, technology, transparency, resource management, and proper supervision. I would like to thank the former chief, Nick Goldschlager, for his support and leadership during this transition. Without him, I would not be standing here and this wouldn't be possible. And even though he's not here, he hasn't had another commitment today, I sincerely love him and thank him for his guidance. I want to thank the city manager for his support during the process, the commission, the mayor, and my wife, Anna, who's here in the audience, friends, colleagues, family, and for all those who have had the confidence and support that they've given me throughout the years. God bless you and thank you.
At this time, we're going to open to public comments and good and welfare. Please come to the podium if you'd like to speak, but please don't forget to announce your name and address or when you come up. Seeing no public comments? Yep.
Dan Samaria, 1030 Northeast 121st Street. To the chief, I hope that this is going to be your last place and you're going to be here for a long time. We need it desperately, and I think that you're going to be good for the village. So I just wanted to wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comments? Seeing none, close to public comments. Information and updates. Village manager, would you like to go ahead and lead that off?
Absolutely. We've sworn in the chief. For those of you who don't want to stay for our full commission meeting, we understand. We won't hold it against you, I promise, if you want to exit. And thank you all for coming out. With that, we'll move ahead to the audit being presented. Can I clear a room or what?
Thank you all for coming. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
No, you're there.
No. We're holding you hostage, Dan. Okay, so we'd like to welcome Enrique Lurena. He's with Caballero, Fireman, Lurena, and Garcia, our auditors, and he's here to present our 2016 audit, which they have wonderfully, and we have wonderfully finished. Thank you.
Well, good evening. For the record, my name is Enrique Llerena, and I serve as the engagement partner on the audit of the village's financial statements for September 30th, 2016. I'm here today to give you a brief presentation of our reports that are included in your financial statements. If you turn to page 1 of the financial statements, here you'll find our independent auditor's report. This report is broken down into sections. I'm going to walk you through the different components. The first section is titled Report on Financial Statements, and this covers the items that we audited. And it states, we have audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Village of Biscayne Park, as of and for the year ended September 30th, 2016. This is followed by management's responsibility, which is that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. Our responsibility as auditors is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. At the bottom of this first page, you find the opinion paragraph. This is the most important paragraph, and here you see an example of an unmodified opinion, and it's the only kind of opinion that you would want to be associated with. And it states that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the village as of September 30th, 2016. On pages 3 through 12 of the financial statements, you find management's discussion and analysis. If there's a section of these financials that you read, it should be this. This is a very good section that provides the results of the current fiscal year. It compares them to the prior fiscal year, and it tells you what changed and why. So this is basically management's story to the readers of the financials as to what transpired during the year. The remainder of our reports begin on page 62, which is the compliance section. The first report in this section is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters, based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. This is commonly referred to in the industry as a Yellow Book report, and this report is broken down into two main sections. The first section is internal control over financial reporting, and the second section is compliance and other matters. In this first section, it gives the auditor the opportunity to communicate to those charged with governance any findings, whether significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that were identified during the course of the audit that relate to internal control over financial reporting. For the current fiscal year that we're reporting on, which is September 30, 2016, the finding that was first identified in 2015 by the predecessor auditor is being repeated. It was slightly modified and repeated. You also have two significant deficiencies that were identified, and they're classified as item 2016-01 and 2016-02. They were considered significant deficiencies, and we elaborate on the nature, criteria, condition, and cause on the schedule of findings and responses that's within this document. There was also one item related to compliance that was identified, and it is categorized as item 2016-03, and this was a material noncompliance that was identified that's also included in that schedule of findings and responses. The next document in this section begins on page 64. It's a management letter in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General of the State of Florida. Now, this letter is required to be presented, and it has required disclosures that we need to include in the financials. One of these disclosures is the status of prior year findings. So if you note on the first, on the fourth section on page 64, it's labeled prior audit findings, and we state that corrective actions have not been taken to address the recommendation in the preceding audit period. We need to communicate the status of those findings that we identify. If one had been identified in the year before, we have to say basically the status as of this year in the audit that we performed, and we communicate it here. There's also a section here for financial condition. As part of our audit, we need to evaluate the financial condition of the village, and if we identify any items that are an indication of a financial emergency, we need to disclose that in this letter. Now, those conditions relate to items such as failure to pay debt service due to lack of funds, failure to pay accounts payable due to lack of funds, failure to pay items such as federal Social Security due to lack of funds. And again, it's a constant pattern. Do you have cash flow restrictions that prevent the village in meeting their obligations? We did not identify any of those conditions that we need to report on this letter. This continues on, and on the next page, 65, within the same financial conditions section, we would also communicate any recommendations for improvement that were identified. Recommendations for improvement included on this letter are items that do not rise to the level of material weakness or significant deficiency, which will be included in that Yellow Book report that I mentioned, but they're less severe, but we still want to communicate it to those charged with governance. I'm pleased to note that we do not have any recommendations to bring to your attention at this time. There were no matters of noncompliance that did not rise to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness that we need to report to you at this time. If there would have been, they would have been on this page 65 under the additional matters section. There's a paragraph here where we would have discussed those type of noncompliance instances. If you note, I mentioned when I was going over the Yellow Book report that we had a schedule of findings and responses. That's actually on pages 67 through 70 of your financial statements. Do you have any questions related to the nature of these findings, anything that you would like to discuss? Because I know the information was provided in advance. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to read it. If not, I can go through the findings now and discuss what they are. Yes?
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay. So the first item was a material weakness that was identified in previous years. This point, I believe, had 7 items previously. We went ahead and evaluated the status of the finding and modified it to be specific to the conditions within fiscal year 2016, and this was reduced to 4 points. And those four points are identified here. It related to items of financial closing reporting, such as accounts receivable balances were not properly stated as a result of the period of time that was recorded for some of the revenues that were identified, so we had to make adjustments related to that. There was issues with the accumulated depreciation of the capital assets, which we had to adjust during the course of the audit. We had compensated absences that were recorded at the fund level. Those items are not recorded at the fund level. They belong only on the government-wide because they're full accrual. You only record them at the fund level when someone announces that they're leaving the village. they're entitled to be paid, but they had not been paid as of the fiscal year end, so it's only a minor timing. That's when it would go at the governmental fund level. If not, it's only on the government-wide financials. So we had to eliminate something for the general fund that had been recorded for that. And in general, some of the subsidiary ledgers that were received related to capital assets didn't agree to the numbers that we had that had been recorded. So due to those items that we identified, this matter was still present. Management had an opportunity to respond, and as you see here, there's a views of responsible officials and plan corrective actions, where the village states what they're going to do and how they're going to correct this matter. So what will happen next is, when we come in to do the audit for September 30th, 2017, the first thing we do is revisit these findings, see where we stand, and provide a status. That'll happen during planning, and what I'm committed to doing is, as soon as our planning procedures are done, I'm going to communicate through the manager the status of these findings so that you're aware of way in advance before you receive the report, kind of where we stand and what we're going to do. So that relates to that recommendation from previous years. As it relates to the ones that we identified during this year, there were two significant deficiencies that were identified. The first one was related to journal entries. The condition that we identified was that during the performance of our audit planning procedures for the fiscal year end September 30th, 2016, we reviewed selected journal entries for the months of October 2015, as well as January, March, May, and August 2016 for various accounts. Our procedures disclosed that the journal entries did not include evidence of review. When you have journal entries, we want to make sure that there's a preparer and there's a reviewer to ensure the accuracy of the information. It's just part of due diligence to ensure that does occur. If it did happen, we did not find evidence that review took place, and it's important to take credit for the work that you're doing. If you are preparing and reviewing items, let's implement a process where you show evidence that review did occur. So that's what we're recommending, that you add a second review or an initial review to journal entries to ensure that those are accurate. The other item that we identified related to the bank reconciliations. During the audit planning procedures for this fiscal year, we reviewed the bank reconciliation for May 2016 for the village's operating bank account. The reconciliation had been prepared June 7th, 2016, but there was no evidence of review of the bank reconciliation. And again, we need to see that layer of review to ensure that the items are properly verified. The non-compliance item that I mentioned was item 2016-03, and this related to the timing of the completion of the audit. As you're aware, you're required to have the audit done within 9 months subsequent to fiscal year end. This is almost like an automatic finding because of the timing of what encountered. This isn't anything that management could have done differently during the time that we've been engaged and we've been here. It's just part of the timing of where you were. The last item, any questions so far on the items that I've gone through?
Yeah.
The last item, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
No?
Keep
Okay.
going.
The last item I'm going to cover is a communication to those charged with governance that's provided at conclusion. The purpose of this letter is just to remind those charged with governance of the requirements of our audit and the items that we covered in some key components of the financial statements, but also to provide a report card in terms of our interaction with management. Did any difficulty occur? Did we have any issues in dealing with management? So the first item I want to cover is on the second page, where it talks about other audit findings and issues. Within this section, it highlights to those charged with governance, in the event that you missed the schedule of findings and responses in the financial statements, we alert you that there was one material weakness, 2 significant deficiencies, and an instance of material noncompliance that should be considered. That was part of the audit. And then at the beginning of the letter, on the bottom, there's a section called Difficulties Encountered Performing the Audit. I'm pleased to note that we did not have any difficulties performing the audit, other than the availability of the information initially to be able to get started. Other than that, it was a pleasure working with Christian, as well as Sharon and Paul from GMS. They were definitely very helpful throughout this process, and I'm glad we were able to complete the audit during the timing that we agreed. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
First, I just want to thank you. I know that this was an undertaking, and I know with the timelines, they were very tight, so I do appreciate you getting this out in time and making sure
Pleasure.
we did not violate our last extension. So thank you.
Thank you
Are
very
there any
much.
questions from the commission?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes, thank you. One question that is usually most asked at the time of reviewing these financial statements is, what's our position of unrestricted funds? And from what I can tell, looking at page 9 of the audit, it talks about the unassigned fund balance, which had a 26% change, being increased from $730,913 for fiscal year ended 15 to the year being reviewed in this audit to $921,999. So I just wanted to highlight that because residents often want to know, well, where are we on our reserves?
Absolutely.
And that's good news that the number went up, but to my eyes, it also means that things that we had planned to get accomplished, we didn't expend the monies for. So it's a double-edged sword there. I do have a question. I'm not sure that you could answer this for me, but on page 61, where you report on the capital improvement fund,
Okay.
and 2016 was a big year for us as far as structural improvements. The log cabin renovation was completed, and we also had a grant for a stormwater study that was completed in September of 2016. So this capital improvement fund ends up at the year end with a negative $250,000 balance. And I'm just wondering if it was a timing issue, that we were caught in the middle of not having received the grant reimbursement yet, and that's why the number appears as it does. But I don't know that you could answer that for me.
I can tell you, and Christian can add a little more light to this, but I can tell you that of this number, $134,500 was related to grant revenues that were received in February. I want to say they came in February 2017. That's when the monies were received. So from a timing perspective, you would have not seen the revenue in the fund level. It would have been something on the government wide. In addition to that, in my conversations with Paul from GMS, he explained that the eligibility criteria related to that grant had not been fulfilled as of September 30th. They were fulfilled quickly thereafter year end, and if that's the case, then you wouldn't have seen the receivable on the financials. So it's really a matter of timing.
Okay.
And my understanding is that the timing, the funds did not come in until the next year.
So when we see the 2017 audit, this should be cleared?
At a minimum, that $134,000 is going to be in revenue, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Then, with regard to the material weakness found
Yes.
on page 67,
Yes.
that, of course, is carried over from prior years. It
Correct.
seems to be a recurring problem for us. And as I understand it, it is encompassed sort of in the umbrella of not having closing procedures, year-end closing procedures or protocols that you run through. In 17, we're going to have the same finding again, I believe, because we had not yet contracted with the current accounting director.
It depends, and not to interrupt, but as your external auditor, my objective is to have constructive support for my clients. So I'm not in the business of wanting to identify findings and reporting findings. What I want is to work with clients to put systems in place where if we, during our communication before the audit even starts, if we're able to find something and you're able to fix it and the process is working, then your internal controls are working. Or if we're able to enhance those before, they're working. Now, you're in a unique time frame because, for example, the non-compliance, depending on the timing of 17, may be repeated because of that timing. So there's certain things you can't fix. Now, related to this material weakness, if when we get the information for 2017, we see that the village went in and were able to reconcile their books, that things are in order, I don't see a reason to repeat the material weakness if when the trial balance is provided, there aren't significant entries. The reason why this was repeated this year is because there were multiple prior period adjustments that were recorded, and when we went through the books and records that we got the information, there were corrections that we had to make based on the information that we received.
Right.
So it wasn't fair to say that again, when I do that planning, I'll be able to tell you based on my preliminary analytic and my communication with the external consultant and the manager, I can tell you kind of where we stand. And you'll know as soon as I know if this is going to be repeated. But if the village does implement internal controls to get a trial balance to us that does not require significant adjustments, there shouldn't be a reason to repeat this finding.
Right, but sitting here today, we can't go back and change what occurred prior to September 30th, 2017, which will be the year in review. So whatever the situation was then, that's what's reported.
That's correct. But your books and records I don't believe they're closed yet. They're still working on closing all your books and records. So depending on that financial close and reporting process, and we're comfortable to see progress being made, then management is on top of what they need to be on top of. What does need to happen is we need to see the evidence of review for journal entries. You need to see the evidence of review for bank reconciliation. Those are things that you could implement and show proactively right now that now and going forward you're doing it. If you do that, then we're confident that your system of internal controls are working and that you've corrected them.
Okay.
And we'll consider that in our assessment in terms of the standing of the findings.
And when you say review of the journal entries and review of the bank recs, we contract our finance director to an accounting firm. So would that review be two members of that accounting firm, one person doing it and one reviewing it, or?
It depends on what the village wants to do. Regardless of anything that you do should be prepared, and there should be a layer of review to ensure that what was prepared is accurate. I believe that if your external consultant does that, perfect. In addition to whatever review they do, there should be someone on the village side reviewing that information to make sure they're comfortable with what that consultant is doing, because when you hire a consultant, the village still has a fiduciary duty to ensure that that information is accurate. So there has to be something on your end, regardless of what you have, what you've contracted someone to do, you still need to have the systems in place to make sure that you're comfortable with the level of service you're receiving. Kind of like when we prepare financials that we provided, we need to make sure that you review it. It's the same process. We need to make sure that you're comfortable with the work product. So that review, which should happen, you should take credit for. So at a minimum, if you do that, you're going to cover the condition related to this finding.
So that review doesn't necessarily have to be done by a CPA or someone with that discipline. It's a matter of checking to make sure it's being done.
Correct. There are no minimum qualifications of the individual that reviews. Ideally, you want to have someone that has a financial background that understands what they're reviewing. You want to have someone that has, so maybe the village manager can review that information.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, you want to do that just for your own comfort that your information is accurate.
Yeah, got it. Last question is with regard to now the 2017 audit that you're going to start with. Unless we get that done before June 30th, we're going to have that financial reporting non-compliance.
You're going to have the non-compliance because it was due within 9 months subsequent to year end, yes, which is what I mentioned earlier, that potentially that one will get repeated just because of timing.
Right, and that would be June 30th.
Correct. June 30th will be the deadline for that. I don't see how that would be possible to meet it. We've been in communications, and based on your external accountant, they believe the information is going to be available July 31st. So in August, we could start the planning procedures for the audit, move right into the field work, and get done as soon as possible. But that would be timing that the village has to determine what they would like to meet and make sure everybody's on the same page, because I want to make sure we're clear on the deliverables, the deadline, and if anything changes along the way, let's have open communication so we're on the same page.
So right now, you're projecting to do the field work in August.
Right now, the way it's projected,
Yeah.
I sent the request list for that audit earlier today. The reply that I received was that the information was going to be ready July 31st. So we could start as soon as we receive it. In fact, as that information is available, if they want to start providing it, once we have a trial balance, we could start validating some of the information. Due to the nature of how this is and the timing, we could do the planning and the field work at the same time if we receive the information. So there's things that we could do to facilitate, expediting the process. But I want to make sure that we have time to evaluate the information, that we can look at everything, and there is a review process. So because you're still going to go beyond that June 30th deadline, let's make sure that when we schedule this, there's enough time to properly review the information, and we have time to communicate and have a review process back and forth. That's the only thing that I would ask.
Okay, thank you. And I was
Thank
going to
you.
ask the manager
My pleasure.
something, but I'll wait a second. Just for everybody's clarification, normally speaking, the 2017 would be done by June 30th. Realistically, since we just finished this audit, that is not likely to happen. I know the manager has been, along with GMS, has been in contact with Deborah White over at JLAC. The Tallahassee doesn't actually meet, I believe, until, they're late this year. I know they're much later. So we do have some time before that becomes problematic for them, although we have to maintain contact and make sure they're on board with the delay, and we have to keep them in the loop. Hopefully at this point, once we're caught up, this will not happen again, and we will actually finally be caught up. I'm going to let other commissioners talk. I just wanted to make sure the public was aware of it. We're talking at 100 miles an hour. While we're totally familiar with all this stuff, you may not be. So I just want to keep them in the loop. But before we do that, let's just like to open up to any of the commissioners. Commissioner Johnson-Sirleaf, do you have anything
I don't have anything additional.
at this time?
At
Okay.
this time, no.
Vice Mayor, sorry, Vice Mayor Tudor. I'll get this right one time. Vice Mayor Tudor.
No, nothing to add. Commissioner Ross basically touched on all the key points.
Pretty much. The only thing I wanted to ask was, based upon your opinion of what you've seen so far, I know this was prior, this is, so everybody's clear, this is 2016, which this is a while ago. So we're catching up from previous commissions. So my question is, based upon your findings, and the fact that we've hired GMS to fill a much more detailed and qualified financial group to help us through this, do you anticipate us having similar problems in the future, or do you imagine that as long as you put a couple of things that you have, well, basically every suggestion you put in place here, that we can finally be on the cutting edge of financial stability and oversight and transparency
Right.
for our community?
I can tell you that during the process of even getting this 2016 audit, GMS was very responsive to the items that we requested. Worked very closely with the manager to get things done, so I don't see why that process wouldn't work in the future to resolve these matters, if not by the end of the 9/30/17 audit, by the planning of the 2018 audit, which actually should happen right after the 17 audit. It would be great if we can get everything done so that no later than October, we could be looking at the planning for the 2018 audit and scheduling a normal
In a
audit-
normal
audit
fashion.
timing, maybe January, February, to maybe even meet the March 31st deadline, which will be great for the 18 audit.
I know you had touched on, and the only other question I have is a future fiscal planning one. I know with our property values going up, I know our revenue has increased over the last 2 years quite well, and it's helped us in terms of our ad valorem, but I also know some of our expenses has gone up. I noticed that we've cut back on some of our expenditures, at least according to this audit, whether that's because we didn't get things done or whether we were more fiscally conservative. I'm happy with that, to have a little money in the bank, especially after the hurricane. I do anticipate with the hurricane and the hit that we took and the outlay of that in our unreserved funds, and we're waiting to get reimbursement back. But there'll be some expenditure that we're going to have to eat, whether it's 20% or whatever the number will end up being. Is there any recommendation that you have regarding reserves based upon storms and things like that we should have in?
I think best practices would be to have about 3 months of operating costs that's available, because you never know when you're going to have a storm. And if you look at the ad valorem taxes, the majorities come in December, so you want to have that cushion of 3 months of operations.
Okay.
That would be a good rule of thumb.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Any further questions?
Just following up on that, I think there was a GASB recommendation that said you needed to set, and we set by resolution, what our unrestricted fund balance percentage-wise would be. It was set at the bare minimum, which might have been two months.
Okay.
And before the storm, or in storm expenses, we were way ahead of that, so we were in a good position. To go back to the review situation and the second layer of review, to get that straight in my mind, everything is done electronically now, so is that review process just making a note in the electronic version of that reconciliation? I just want to understand mechanically what it is.
There's no right or wrong way to do it. There just needs to be evidence of what you do. So whether you use a paperless system that you could track sign-offs and review, whether it's you have a bank reconciliation, you prepared it, you send an email, you have track of the email that you sent, someone replies to you, I've reviewed it, everything's okay, that reply, keeping track of whatever evidence you can compile that it did occur, that's what you need to have, because if there isn't evidence, we can't say it happened. And that's really what I'm trying to get at. I need to see evidence that is happening.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it
Thank you.
again.
My pleasure.
Okay. We're going to move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have an ordinance. It's a first reading regarding feeding of animals. I'm going to make a request because the person who authored this is not here this evening. If there is no objection, I would like to postpone that to the next meeting. Is there any objection?
Make sense?
Okay, so go ahead and table 9A. Okay, we're going to move on to Resolution 10A, Village Manager. I'm sorry, Village Attorney, Resolution 2018-12. And that's item 10A.
Right. This is resolution number 2018-12, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing the solid waste assessment fee for the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2018, providing for severability, providing for inclusion, and providing for an effective date. This is a request to pass and adopt.
Village Manager.
We have Finance, and we have Kenny Rivera from Waste Pro here tonight as well. Last month, we brought this forward. We had options to include, we had different options for you. We've gone back to just the original form where there's no additions. We received the CPI letter from Waste Pro, and that information's in the memo. So we're looking at our solid waste fee. The budget set for 501,929 right now. Now, I learned today from Waste Pro that there's apparently some question with the recycling costs now that tipping fees for that have increased considerably. And so I don't know if the attorneys had a chance to look at the contract regarding that, or?
Yes, I did have a chance to look at the contract. Based on the contract, the service charges for Waste Pro can go up by CPI plus fuel charges, so there's a formula for that. When you go down to disposal, the article right below the amount for service charge, it talks about the service fee is inclusive of the disposal fee up to 2,700 tons. Those are the only two, and if you exceed the 2,700 tons, then the village is responsible for actual cost. So if the service fee is includes the disposal fee, increasing the service fee through the CPI necessarily is already increasing that. So based on the contract, I don't believe there's any authority for Waste Pro to request an additional 1%. The only other method for Waste Pro to actually get an additional whatever they're requesting percent would be, 1.8%, would be for a petition for adjustment. But they can only do that in an unusual circumstance, and an increase in tipping fees or increase in disposal fees I don't believe would be unusual, considering they're in this business, and everyone knows that fees do go up. So based on the foregoing, unless there's additional information or Waste Pro has anything else they'd like to present or additional information, I do not believe the contract provides for them to request an additional increase.
Okay, and if you would explain.
Yes, good evening. Ken Rivera with Waste Pro at 17302 Pines Boulevard, Pembroke Pines. Thank you for the opportunity to clear some things up, because I think there's some information that needs to be cleared up so we understand what the 2,700 tons represents to the city as opposed to what's included in the service fee. The 2,700 tons really represents a generation factor. That means that this is what, historically speaking, the city generates from historical information that we've received over the past while we've been servicing, and also while the city was servicing when they were doing the privatization. So based on that 2,700 ton number or amount, we provide a rate. And in our rate, it includes that component of the residential rate. Now, when we go to the dump, okay, and I'll use simple math real quick, but to pick up 2,700 tons, because we're not contemplating that the city has generated 2,700 tons or more, or in excess of that. What we're saying is that the same volume that we've been picking up for the last time, for the amount of time that we've been servicing the city, every year, the disposal facilities that we have contracts with, they increase their tipping fee to us. In turn, we then charge a service fee to the city to cover those costs. It's no different than when if you go through a gallon of milk every week and that's what you consume, but every month that gallon of milk keeps increasing its cost. You're not generating more trash. You're just paying more for the same amount of milk that you drink. Same concept here. Now, the way the contract is set up, the timing and the marrying up of between the time we have to provide information to the city for an increase and the time that increased percentage comes from the facility, they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. So I have no way of knowing what that increase is going to.
Could you tell us the dates for the record?
So I have, in the city, I have to provide, by the end of May, I believe it is, or whatever the time is,
I believe it's April 15th.
April, what our CPI should be based on numerical information and based on a table on the CPI, which is, initially I went to September, but it's really June, the numbers that I needed to use. And that's a table that's set out by the Department of Labor every year. Well, the disposal component of our service doesn't come out till August for an October fiscal year implementation rate. So I have no way of providing information, information that is not available now. I think I reported 1.5% increase based on what historically has occurred over the course of the last 3 years. There's no doubt that there's going to be an increase on the from the facility, no matter what facility you go to, whether it's Dade County or whether it's Reuters at Waste Management. But every year these facilities are increasing their fees to us, and we have to pay more at the dump for the same amount of volumes. I had no way of providing this information to the city without really going forward and putting it in writing so that we can begin the conversation. I am fully aware that our contract allows for some sort of talks with the city and the city manager relating to components that fall outside of the timing component of the contract. That being said, Friday afternoon, I don't know, maybe about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we received a letter from our recycling process facility. In this county, you have Waste Connections and you have Waste Management, and we take our recycling to Waste Connections, which is a recycling process facilities, among other things. It's a publicly held company, third largest in the country, so it's a company that's been around for a very long time. Currently, we pay $35 a ton to dump that recycling at their facility, meaning that every time my truck goes in there, we have to pay them to dump it there, and then they process it, and there's absolutely zero rebates. They sent us a letter on Friday to tell us that effective June 16 of this year, that fee from $35 is going all the way up to $115 a ton. Why is this happening? Many, many reasons. Number one, it has to do a lot with the situation going on in China. China has completely shut down the recycling process, understanding that China controls 70% of the market from when it comes to recycling. So everything that's recycled in this at least in this county gets dumped, it gets processed. There's a whole bunch of people going through it, and what's resellable to the processors, they go ahead and sell that out to China, and then China then in turn ships the goods over to us using the cardboard and the paper and the plastic.
Could you tell them what those items are so they're aware?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell them what those items are?
So basically they're looking at mixed paper and cardboard and plastic. And that's basically what China would pay a commodity for. So China has decided over the last, 3 to 4 months, and you can look this up on Waste Dive and all kinds of solid waste industry type of publications that are out there, where the commodities market has tanked. In other words, they are no longer accepting any type of material that is coming from this country because they've implemented a 0.5% contamination rate. What does that mean? Imagine that your cart, the one cart that you have in your house, full of recycling, and only 0.5% of that total volume could be contaminated. Now imagine, bring that up further, an entire truck, 0.5% can only be contaminated. Why? Because they realize that they produce just as much as garbage and recycling materials in their own country than they can importing it from different parts of the world. That's a reality of life. That's where we're at right now in the recycling market. It's a shame, but it is what it is. So what's happening now is cities that are not under any sort of contract with any type of recycling facilities, and I'll use a city that I'm familiar with, Miramar, for example. Miramar has a contract under current terms with Waste Connections, and they have a contract where, they produce 500 to 600 tons a month, and they have a contract. We take it there, and they work out the logistics, and they get a rebate. Well, that contract is up in about 3 to 4 months. That rebate is gone. It's going to go away because it's the cost of the commodity and the processing cost has far exceeded the amount of revenue that they get for the commodity. City of Hollywood tomorrow, and I'll be at the City of Hollywood tomorrow afternoon, we'll be renewing a contract with Waste Connections for their recycling contract, extending it all the way up to July of 2019. The difference between them and then what's going on now and what's going to happen after tomorrow is the rebate process is gone because they do not, or no companies offering any type of rebate system. So what's the next question? The next question is, well, go to somewhere else, right? There's plenty of people that are going to take this material. Well, the only other player in town is Waste Management, and Waste Management is charging $95 a ton. So there's a big problem right now going on in the market.
And just
yes.
real quick, just to add, and what do we pay to have our garbage disposed?
Oh, right now, $65.
Thank you.
So yes, it is $65 a ton to dispose of the garbage. Pembroke Pines, for example, a city we just renewed a couple of weeks ago, it costs just the same amount to dispose of the garbage than it is to dispose of the recycling. So it is a very, very current problem that is happening in our industry, and really the question is starting to be asked is, well, does it pay to recycle? Is it better just to throw it in the trash and deal with the political, situation that may happen, At the end of the day, recycling is a business, and unfortunately the demand is growing ever so, it's going higher and higher, except that the business model of recycling isn't where it needs to be, and these companies are not doing it for practice anymore. The ideal situation is to recycle right, which is more of a behavioral change than anything else. Educate the consumer, educate the producer about what to recycle in the carts. But imagine if we just stop using the recycling carts, what all these thousands and thousands of carts that are out there for recycling, what are you going to do with all those? The cart plastic is not even recyclable anymore. So it's a very big problem that's happening in our industry. But I'm aware of the CPI situation. I've talked to the village manager about it. We're okay with the CPI that we spoke of, just on the service side. We're still in negotiations with Waste Connections to see, how we can mitigate from $35 to $115, which is cost that we do not get reimbursed for. And it's just a situation where, we can't, that type of fee hike, we cannot absorb. No company can. It is just impossible. So, either we keep buying the same milk for 3 times as much, or we change milk, or we don't drink milk at all. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But I'm here to just say that I'm okay with the CPI in terms of the service fee. We're good with that. And when I get more information regarding 2 things, the recycling and also the solid waste assessment, not the assessment, but the increase, I will come back and provide the proper documentation, the proper language for the contract that allows for that, and then we leave it up to the the council to decide what the decision will be.
Are there any questions? No question. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a
I have a
question?
quick
So, yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, just, I want to make sure I got everything
Mhm.
in my head. Which CPI are we using, June or April?
Whatever our contract is. So I think we used, because I don't have my phone. Where's my phone?
Yeah, because the only reason I'm asking, because it had on the letter June, but the numbers were for April. I'm
Right.
trying
So
to figure out which one are we-
I submitted an addendum to that, and I'm just looking at my phone here. June,
Okay, so we're using the June numbers.
yes.
Okay, so we be looking at a rate change of 1.5%?
No, you're
I'm going through the formula that you have there.
1.35%, because it's 90%
Yeah,
of the.
90%, so 1.5, 90%
Yes.
is 1.35?
Yes.
Okay, and then with that added to the prior rate of 25.96 will get us at 26.31?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where we're at currently.
Mhm.
And then what you're asking in your letter is for that additional 1.5%?
For the disposal, and unfortunately, like I said 1.5 because historically, that's where it's been. But again, because I don't have the actual number, it could be less, it could be more, it could be at 1.5. I just, unfortunately, I until August, I don't know what that number is going to be.
And to have the discussion on that, my understanding, looking at a contract, that would fall underneath, is it Article 11?
Yes,
The
I
rate
so
of-
I would
the
come
adjustment
back.
by petition?
Correct,
Okay.
100%. I would have to come back to you with the documentation, with the backup as to what the, by petition and beg and please and be on my one knee, because I got a bad knee for,
Yeah, because, I mean, personally, for me, in order to really kind of get to really digest information, I really need to have that supporting. I know I
100%.
had sent you some
Yes,
emails
yes,
back in
yes.
early May on that. So, yeah, so I just wanted to kind of get the numbers to make sure
Yep.
which month, which CPI month we're looking at. Yeah, that's the only question I had this time.
Okay. Village Manager, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Attorney Dunkio? Okay, just want to make sure. Commissioner Ross?
So my concern is to make sure that we're following the requirements of the contract. I'm sure you remember it was a very big deal when we outsourced, and we had people on both sides wanting to and not wanting. So, and some of what they said was, you lose control. And I always felt like if we stick to the terms of the contract, and that's what we negotiated, and it's for a set term, and understanding there's that petition process, then we're doing the fairest that we could do
Yes.
for our residents. And for that reason, I feel that adding this disposal fee, 1.5% disposal fee that's not permitted in the contract, not allowed for in the contract, sort of opens up a precedent of, and it's not a lot, 1.5%, but it opens up a precedent of sort of deviating from the deal that we made. And without going through the petition process where it's a negotiation, I'm really hesitant to allow for that 1.5%.
So it is my intent to, and I understand and agree with you, completely as to your comments. It was my intention and my expectation today that what would be approved would be what's the rate right above what's on the letter, which is the CPI language. That is what our anticipation is and our expectation. We totally understand the whole disposal component and to further in the future to come back and discuss that matter. So it was my intent to to say, you know what, you're right, we need, but I needed to start the conversation and the awareness of, from a disposal conversation, but from a contractual CPI component and CPI conversation, we did expect that and I don't know how procedurally you do this, but, that the only thing that would be approved, or maybe an amendment to the resolution, is to only approve the CPI component of the letter, which is right above I think it was 2631, I think the number is? The new rate?
2644?
To-
Yeah.
That was using, just to let you know, that was using the numbers on this here
Yep.
that says June is actually, those are April numbers.
The
June
April
numbers
3rd letter?
Yeah, the June numbers are actually for June 2017 is 237.346.
Yeah.
And June 2016 is 233.838. So those are actual June numbers. So when you throw those numbers into the calculation that they have there, that's where you come out to a final number coming down at what I calculated was 2631.
2631, yes. And that's the component that I anticipate tonight to be amended and approved. And then right below it, which talks of the disposal, wouldn't be, and then that would be something that would be brought up in the future once we get actual information and go through the petition process as the contract states.
Okay.
So if I'm not doing my math correctly, that's $1.67 difference.
I'm sorry?
If I'm doing my math correctly, it's $1.67 difference, correct, per household? Okay. 40 cents difference per household. Okay, thank you. Just as a quick aside, not this, but please don't forget our plenty of requests on having a...
Yes, I will get with the manager tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. That was
Yes.
for an EPA hazardous waste event. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Anybody, any questions for Mr. Winklejohn regarding this? I have a few, so if you don't mind. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Could you just go through the difference on what we have here versus what's being proposed, just to make sure we're all on the same page?
I don't know what you have in front of you, exactly.
Okay. I'll tell you what, why don't you just tell us what...
Yeah,
Okay.
as he stated, he had and the vice mayor's comment was accurate, that his rate before the 1.5% tipping increase, for whatever reason you want to call it, was $26.31 monthly. That number with his 1.5% escalator, which obviously is not approved and it's not in his contract, but if you were to consider it, it would be another 40 cents higher at $26.71. And after you generate all of the overhead, that came out to an annual of $406.96. So there's basically, with what's in front of you, you can, because you're setting the ceiling of an
It's
assessment.
the height, it's the height.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to clarify for everybody on the record, so...
Yeah, so what they have what you have the opportunity to do is as a commission still choose that, but there were, the last time I reported, one of the larger corrections to your financials for the sanitation fund was the shortage in the discount fees. So that a big chunk of all these increases from prior year are really related to that. And you are essentially loaning money from your general fund to the sanitation fund, and I hope everyone agrees that that's not appropriate. So that being done, whatever rate the commission feels with, I would advise picking the larger number. As the negotiation plays out, you can, when you adopt, you can adopt any number to the 2631 or higher to the other number, which would be the 2671.
Would that give us enough of a cushion, being that we were running at a deficiency previously with this number? Because that is my bigger concern,
Right.
more than the 40 cents. My bigger concern to me is make sure we're not working at a deficiency.
Right. You're asking me if I'd like you to have more money. I think you can go with yes, anytime.
Well, I'm not saying unlimited, but I just want to make sure we're not running at a deficiency, because
No,
there's,
yeah,
it's kind of like running your bank account out to
I
nothing.
presented the calculation that resolves the deficiency and allows you to meet a very fair overhead as
Okay.
we've adjusted that. So yes.
Just to point one thing out too. Just to point one thing out as well is, even if it is increased, if it is in fact an increased fee from Waste Pro, it actually wouldn't be revenue to the village because it would pass straight through to Waste Pro.
Right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was asking kind of two questions, but perhaps I wasn't clear in it.
Right.
My first question was, are we funding it sufficiently so we won't have any deficiencies?
Right.
And then my second question was, if we decided to increase it to compensate for that, to have the cap, if we end up agreeing, if we were to agree to that 40-cent increase, that would then be taken away anyway. And I
Correct.
guess my question would be, if even with the 40% and even if we gave it away, we still would not be operating in deficiency, correct?
You'd be even.
Okay, that was my bigger
Yeah,
point.
slightly ahead, actually, by design.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes. So looking at the resolution, and I know you probably didn't prepare the resolution, but...
I heard about it, though.
Okay. Let's go back to looking at your chart.
Yes.
We're saying that the assessment per unit is going to be $406.96.
Correct, which would include the 40 cents
And
just
then
discussed.
net of the discount and net of the county fee, that would bring us a sanitation budget, actual money that we take in and spend, 501,929.
Correct.
Okay, so when that translates over to to the resolution, it says, whereas assessed properties are hereby found to be especially benefited by the provision of solid waste collection services and solid waste management fees assessed, is that the assessment's estimated to be 406.96, perfect.
Yep.
Per unit, which is 2464 more than 2017, based on a sanitation budget. And then it says 501,929. In the parenthetical, it says 528,239.
Correct. Is the grossed up number.
With fee
Yeah.
and discounts.
Yes, perfect.
I mean, that sounds like a plus and a minus to me.
The use of parentheses is not an accounting technique in that resolution.
Yeah, okay.
I thought of that too. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a narrative.
Yeah, I just wonder, maybe the attorney can help clarify that language.
You're right.
so
If,
that-
if you were looking at it like an accountant, you would be confused.
Yeah,
Yeah, because of the pair of things.
I just,
You know, we
but
can, we
do
can
you have any
provide-
suggestion of how?
I mean, you
to
can
phrase
italics
it?
or, you know, something.
Yeah.
Based on the approved annual sanitation budget of 501,929, and you could just put another comma or something there, which reflects a total budget of 528,239. And I think the fee, or you can even put
Net
520
of,
Right, net of after fee and discounts.
Okay,
Both work. Yep.
Yeah, so
Just-
we can fix the whereas clause, and this was like a TV show, I'd say post-production.
okay,
We can add some special effects to that.
okay. Is there a consensus that we should do that? Is there anybody objects to that? Okay. We're going to do it more formally. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page on that. Thank
Good
you,
catch.
Commissioner Roth.
I like that.
Are there any other comments or questions? Commissioner Johnson Sodoma?
No, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on everything that was said here, as far as the 2631, that before the 1.5%, because I'm not really inclined to add that 40 cents right now until I see a presentation and everything. But what I understood your response to the mayor is that 2631, we would be not in any deficits or any problems, that number is fine.
And it's a cap. It's a high. We don't have to go
Right.
that high. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion?
one last question.
Sure.
Since it is a 24 some odd dollar increase, my reading of Florida statute says when there's an increase, you have to advertise the fee. And Andrew and I were talking about that just previously. I'm still unsettled, and I don't want something to be revoked or said that we're not making the assessment properly if we're not following what the law requires us to do.
I was anticipating you would use the trim notice as your advertisement, and you would adopt this under final resolution at the trim hearing.
Well, right, because that is the process under 197. The other thing as well within 197 that refers to that is if it exceeds the maximum rate allowed by law, and under solid waste assessments, the maximum rate is the actual cost of service, which includes direct and indirect. I don't believe we're exceeding that rate, but as our finance director did indicate, it will be sent out to each person on their trim notice with the date of the public hearing, for which that particular item will be on the agenda.
Okay, so that takes care of it? I just want to make sure, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Ross that we have to make sure we're fully transparent on this. I don't want, I know it's it's not a huge sum of money, but at the same time, I just want to make sure that we're very transparent on it as well.
If you would like, I could do additional research and have something out to the commission just to reaffirm that, but I'm fairly confident that it does not need to be completely re-advertised, and even if it did, the trim notice, which would give notice of the hearing for when
Okay.
for the final hearing would, but I'll make sure that I double check that for.
Just make sure there's nothing, okay, thank you very much.
And last thing is, generally with the trim notice, we sent out a letter from the village. We deliver to the assessor's office a letter that's included with the trim notice, sort of
insert,
explaining
right.
what the assessment is, so just want to make sure we're doing that.
Yes, for any non-ad valorem, they require an insert in Dade County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Okay, is there a motion on the floor to adopt Resolution 2018-12 with the corrections regarding the language on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph on page 1 of 2?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-12 as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to Resolution 10B. Attorney Dunkiel, it's 2018-14.
This is Resolution 2018-14, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, ratifying the selection and appointment of board members to the Public Safety Advisory Board, providing for an effective date. This is a request to pass and adopt.
Is there any discussion? We voted on this last? None? Okay, is there a resolution, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-14?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 218-14.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. 10C, Attorney Dunkiel, Resolution 2018-15.
This is resolution number 2018-15, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park authorizing the manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement effective October 1, 2017 through September 30th, 2020 between the Village of Biscayne Park and the Dade County Police Benevolent Association, providing for an effective date. This is a request to pass and adopt. And just to clarify, like when this is just one amendment, this should be to ratify the contract as opposed to authorize the manager to execute.
Okay. Is there any, would you like to give a little background on the process that we went through a little bit?
Absolutely. Our contract, our current PBA contract expired in 2016, so we've been running without a contract for a while now. We've worked this past year negotiating with the PBA and have found a happy medium with our officers on what we can grant them. It also provides the chief with a little extra starting capital to replace officers as we have attrition. And so there's a step raise in here for them, or a set of step raises. And it also addresses a few items that the commission were concerned about as well, such as some of the policies that we had with leave and so forth. So moving forward, the officers did ratify it. They voted and ratified it today, in fact, or yesterday, excuse me. And so we're bringing it forward to the commission now. So.
Thank you. Attorney Dunkiel, do you have any additions to that?
No, just this would be a motion to ratify the contract between the manager and the union.
Okay, any open for discussion?
So, as I requested at the executive session when we were so many months ago reviewing the terms, and asked of the manager, it was important to me to see the numbers, what the impact is going to be on the budget, and particularly since some of these increases are retroactive. And I did get chart from John, Paul, but I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to tell me on this chart. We're going back to 17, and fortunately not all the way back to 16, but can our current budget absorb the retro?
Yeah, the chart is the 2017-2018 analysis, which it would show how you would absorb it. It's about a $30,000, $35,000, if I recall, increase. It would be proportionately less than that because of the timing in 2017. It would be probably another 12,000, 15,000, somewhere in that range. Easily absorbed in that, in that proportion. It's not outside your means. So you'd be fine financially to accept this. Your police department is inelastic. You work, but there's no new revenue the more that you work. So your whole community is built to respond to that financially. So
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, any other comments? All right, I'm going to make just a few comments, and that is, it is always difficult when negotiating to try and find a balance between a fair and equitable salary for the officers who work for us, and staying within our means, and also being competitive in neighboring communities so that we don't constantly lose officers. One of the challenges has been, since I've become a commissioner, is trying to make sure we can rebuild a police force that this community can be proud of. Also, at the same time, holding officers accountable for things such as leave, sick leave, and making sure we don't have some of the issues we've had historically. I think this does strike that balance, and I appreciate the efforts that Attorney Hearn and the manager have done in the negotiating, as well as this entire commission. So for that reason, I will ask, is anybody making a motion to ratify the resolution 2018-15, allowing the manager to, give me the correct language, please, Attorney?
Ratify the contract.
To ratify the contract. To ratify the contract. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to ratify, for the village manager to ratify the contract with the PBA.
Say it again.
Yeah, need to speak.
I will make a motion for the manager to ratify the contract with the PBA.
I'll
Is there a second?
I think we have a second from Commissioner Ross.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, fine. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, we're going to move on to old business. At the last commission meeting on May 1st, there was a consensus to continue the discussion of hiring a new village attorney. We had re-advertised, just to make sure the public is aware, we have re-advertised in the Florida Bar. There was a discussion, I believe, to keep it through June 15th. I would like to start off by, I know the manager's done a little bit of work on this, so I'd like to allow the manager some time on possible suggestions for process.
Absolutely. The ad runs really the entire month. We can cut it off at June 15th. We haven't gotten a great amount of response from the ad in the bar so far. Currently we have, I believe, 9 or 10 applicants. Can the clerk?
9?
9? Okay. As well as, and that's the applicants. That does not include our current attorney, Mr. Hearn and Mr. Dunkiel. So it's actually 10 if we throw their hat in the ring, which we would like to do. And so, so with that perspective, I mean, we can cut it off at June 15th if you guys would like, and then we can go ahead and reach out to the individuals. We can provide or set up presentations from the applicants and narrow it down from there, and then have interviews with say the top 5 or top 3, whichever you'd prefer.
Okay, so just as a thought, I know there are many different ways to do this, and I've heard a lot of them. So there's the possibility of having us narrow it down before. There's a possibility of hearing all presentations if there are 10, 15-minute presentations. That would be a couple hours. Perhaps then narrowing it down. Then having interviews if we wanted to, and then possibly at that point having us give you the top 3 to negotiate. I did have one concern I did want to mention, and that was because of the way we advertised it with a budget of $75,000. It can be interpreted different ways, and so I just want to make sure that all the attorneys on the same field where they have the opportunity to tell us what their hourly rate is.
Okay,
because
I can find out. I can
right,
call.
so they can understand, because I know if you there's some discussion on litigation, what they think will or will not be included in what that scope of those services are. I thought you did a nice job on the ad, but at the same time, it's interpretable a little bit. So prior to us meeting, I would like to make sure that we got the hourly wages of that for everybody. With that in mind, I'd like to start perhaps from each one of us giving an idea of what the process could be. We could do something, which is what you've mentioned. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I would be for cutting it at June 15th if we've really not received anything since we've posted on the Florida Bar. There's no need to prolong it and keep it going until the end of the month. So I'm fine with cutting it at June 15th. And if we have these 10 applicants, 9 or 10 or whatever it is, and that's what will remain until June 15th, let's say, on that chance, I think that's a small enough number to have all 10 present so that we can narrow it down from there. And then decide on a final number. I think 3 is a good final number to work with. That would be my opinion.
Vice Mayor?
Kind of flexible in that regard. I'm kind of open to that, to the suggestion by Commissioner Johnson Sardella. I'm completely fine with cutting off the date to June 15th. And then just taking if we have 9 or 10, and take a look at those, and then just, we could always come back with the final 3.
I have only one question, logically speaking, because of the July 4th holiday and all of that, and setting it all up. Would anybody be opposed to having those presentations prior so that anybody who's going on vacation doesn't interfere with their vacation? So it'd be sort of in that, and have a special, not a special meeting in the sense of a meeting, but more of a workshop presentation, so that since attorneys Hearn and Dunkiel have offered to stay on if we choose, I don't think it'd be appropriate necessarily to have them around while we're doing this, if there's no objection to that. And I don't think the attorney, I think I've spoken to about it, I don't think you have any issues with that either.
Yeah, there's absolutely no issues. I mean, if it's a commission decision, and if there's a legal question, we're available by phone. It gives you the ability to discuss whatever you need to, and if you decide whatever you decide, you don't feel pressured. So, yeah, we're perfectly fine with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Commissioner?
Yeah, I honestly don't think that it's necessary to sit through 10 applicant presentations. I think that we should narrow that field down to 3 or 4 and then seriously interview those rather than, spend a morning and have people come in who we really have no intention of considering.
Mayor, can I suggest that the reality is once we have the hourly rate for all of these, some of these will eliminate themselves, and that may actually help us in reducing the field so that we aren't sitting through 10 presentations, and instead, because if they come in at $300 an hour, we know that's beyond our budget. So.
As long as, and I'm going to ask Attorney Dunkiel just to be clear, because we didn't put in a minimum or a maximum in the advertisement, we put an annual budget, and then we said hourly negotiable. I just want to make sure we're not creating any legal issues for us. I'm assuming not, but I just want to make sure.
There are no legal issues. This is for professional services. It's completely exempt from our procurement code. It's completely dependent upon the procedure which we put in place.
Okay, thank you.
I also would caution that we shouldn't just judge an applicant by their hourly rate. If their rates, some of the larger firms or some of the firms that employ paraprofessionals could probably deliver just as efficiently with a range of rates, and we shouldn't just cross an applicant out because there may be a high rate of 300 or 200 or 280. We're not looking when you're looking for a professional, you don't necessarily want the lowest rate.
Well, then I'm going to make a suggestion that we had 10 applicants. It's 15 minutes each. It's not a huge amount of time. I don't see why we can't dedicate a couple hours to this, so to be fair, we hear from everybody, because it might change our mind, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, I would agree with that. What I would ask, because I can hear both sides, that's why we discuss things, but if not using their hourly rate, which I would agree with Commissioner Ross that, if we cut them out right away, then it could be negotiable, and they could come back with a different rate if we actually pulled them out of the stack and talked to them. But if we can't come up with a way to narrow it down from the 10, I don't see the 10. We can't just, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, hear from them and then go from there. Because sometimes someone can look some way on paper, and then you talk to them, and it helps to formulate your decision.
I agree with that, and I think the other piece I have is if you have somebody totally inexperienced and it takes them 5 hours to research something at $200 an hour and somebody already knows it and grab it at $300 an hour, you actually save money. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I do think as well that I just don't think it's that onerous to listen to 10 applicants. If we had 30 or 40 applicants, it'd be a big deal. But I think it's 10, and I think that's not undoable. It's a couple hours of our time. And then we could, after that, narrow it down and then have final interviews, phone it by phone, or however we want to do it. Or even narrow it down for one more shot. I'm open to discussion on that. Commissioner, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I just don't know of any employer that interviews every applicant that turns in a resume for a job. I think it's not only a waste of our time, it's also inconsiderate of the applicant's time.
Well, another alternative could be, the commission has all of the applicants, or we'll make sure that you do, and all the information, at which point you can select your, say, top 6 or 7, and we reduce from there. And the top 5 out of that come in for presentations, and then we cut from that. Would that make more sense, Commissioner Ross? Would that be?
If we reduce them by half, I think that we can invest time in reviewing those 5 applicants.
Why don't we have a consensus and decide how we want to do this? Because I think there's definitely 2 different views. So is there a consensus to reduce, or is there a consensus to listen to have the 10?
I'm fine with reducing, but what I'm trying to understand is how we're reducing.
Right.
Because unlike, I understand an employer doesn't interview every single applicant, but that's one employer. It's not 5 people. So how do we get the 5 of us to decide on who we're moving forward with? Whatever the suggestion is, if it's something that's doable and works, then fine, and we can narrow it. But it's just trying to determine how we do that amongst the 5 of us.
We have to come up with we have to have an objective criteria.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
It would have to be a public meeting, yes.
Yeah, and it would still have to be a public meeting, and we'd still have to have a workshop to decide how to get down. Whether we listen to them before or listen to them afterwards, I just don't see a 10 or 15-minute presentation. Personally, I don't think that's that onerous on us. This is an attorney. This is a big decision for us. I don't see an issue with it myself. That's where I'm leaning towards. However, I don't have an objection if we came up with a criteria. Like, for example, if we said if somebody didn't live within the county, the local area, that's a reasonable criteria, so that we're not having somebody drive in and out. That could be a criteria. I'm not saying that is the criteria. I'm saying we'd have to come up with one, which is also onerous. That's a whole other process.
The only other way I would think is that if we don't come up with criteria and we simply pick whatever the number is, I think the village manager said 6 or 5 or whatever it is, and then cross-reference, I guess, whoever's the matching, the highest matching, whatever you want to say, okay, the first highest, second, third, fourth, amongst all 5 of us, then that's the bundle that we're left with. Then there's no criteria. There's no, it basically boils itself down.
Yeah, I'm open to listen to 10 applicants. I don't think it's that onerous. I really don't.
Listening to my fellow commissioners, listening to the village manager, I think in order to kind of get the ball rolling and moving on this, I think I've already looked at the 9 applicants or however many we've received. I've already looked at those. I've already researched them. I've already kind of picked I actually did my top 4. So I've already done that, so it may just make sense for us to meet. We present our top 4 or 5. You know, if we have a consensus on, you know, if we decide we're going to we're going to take the top 5 in interview, and if we have a consensus on 4 out of the 5, then we can have a discussion on filling that 5th slot. But, you know, if I could just see it just snowballing if we, you know, have 10 people coming in, and I could just see this being more of a nightmare. My experiences in you know, multiple employers has always been the pool of applicants. They go ahead, they have their criteria, and they will do just that. This person over here will pick his top, you know, 10 candidates. This person will pick his top 10, and they'll find a consensus, and then they'll work it through that way. I'm fine with doing it, you know, going that route.
The same. I've also looked at all the applicants so far, so.
I have as well.
I think, I haven't really looked at the one, I think we received one yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe
a
so,
couple
A
of
few
days
days ago. A few days ago. I haven't looked at that one either.
So I haven't looked at that one, but I've basically looked at everything, so I'm fine to,
Okay,
go with that
then
suggestion.
rather than coming with a concrete number, why don't we plan on meeting? Pick a date. If June 15th is your closure, we can pick a date shortly after that. Give us a few days in case there are a couple more applicants. Find an available date, all meet, narrow it down. We don't have to pick a number today, we can pick a number on the day we're doing it. We may end up with much less of a field or much greater of a field depending on what we see as a group. So is there any available dates?
There's Tuesday, June 19th.
I'm available.
I'm just coming into town, so it would be a push for me.
Okay. Let's see here. There's Wednesday the 20th. And it looks like, no, there's a sunshine meeting on the 21st.
Is any, we probably should have a few dates, being that Commissioner Milt is not here. Just have a few dates, pick, you know, top 2 or 3, and then just to make
Okay.
sure.
I would say Wednesday the 20th, would that work for you, Commissioner Ross?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that works
And
for me.
then,
And that works for me.
Yeah, alternatively,
Does that work
At
for you?
what-
Tuesday the 26th or Wednesday the 27th, either of those days?
Fine with me.
Yeah, both those days work for me.
Work for me as well.
26th and 27th works for me. Tentatively, the 20th doesn't work technically right now, this moment, but it may be opening up, so, but the best dates for me are either the 26th or 27th.
Okay. Can you also check with Commissioner Milt and let us know?
Yes.
Okay. And email us and final dates. Okay.
Could you repeat, please, Mayor, the dates?
Sure. It's the 20th, the 26th, and 27th of June. Possible dates.
Okay.
Is there a time that we can do this? Do we want to make it a little earlier? Do you want to make it at 6:30?
6:30 would be fine with me.
6:30 work?
Yeah, anytime 6:30 on works for me.
That's fine.
Okay, 6:30?
6:30 it is.
Okay. Assuming we meet and we narrow down the field, at that point, whatever date, if you could make sure that we can get presentations or interview. You guys do want to do presentations or individual interviews? I think it would be easier for the candidates to have them do a presentation than have us meet afterwards and narrow it down further. Does that work? So we have, after we meet and have our picks, then there are presentations? And then well, this is my thought. After we narrow it down and get our choices, we get presentations from as a group, and then bring that back to the commission on the 14th, July 10th, to then pick our top 3 and allow the manager a chance to negotiate, because in case one doesn't work for the negotiations, then he would have a second and a third option to go on in that order. Would anybody object to that?
I don't understand what the manager's going to negotiate.
When they go to negotiate, there's a negotiating of the rate. You're going to be negotiating rates, hourly rates, and things like that, unless you want that determined ahead of time, because most of them put negotiable. So who's going to negotiate? We can't negotiate as a group of us. Somebody's going to have to negotiate on our behalf. There's a contract that has to come up, it has to be negotiated. That is usually the manager's purview.
Well, in a contract, but my experience, having worked in a law firm and that firm representing municipalities, is that a retainer letter is offered. And the rates are going to be depending on the particular assignment and work that's given to them. It's not like you could say we're going to buy 5 widgets at $8 a piece.
If you read one of the applicants, they had a 3-page or 4-page resolution identifying every item. Some of this may be much more detailed, and I don't feel comfortable. It may be a retainer letter, that may be it, but if it's not,
I guess we'll get to that stage when we're there. I don't really see what, I mean, I guess we would have to give the manager terms also. I mean, he's, hiring the attorney is the commission's job. It's not the manager's job.
yes.
But we're not ready for that discussion today, so.
Okay, well, we can postpone that. That's fine. Okay, so we'll go ahead and set up a meeting and then go from there.
We will.
Okay. Okay, moving on to request for replacement of items on next meeting's agenda. I know we're going to have a recommendation for the attorney. That's obviously going to be one of them. I'd also like to add, if I may, discussion of changing the fee structures, especially to make sure we deal with construction issues. And I also may add a section on that, on discussing the construction issues as well. Bring that back. Are there any other requests for replacements of item on the agenda?
Are we ever going to finalize the driveway ordinance?
I think there's a consensus here that we all want that back in, so.
Let's add that back
Well, let's
in,
add the driveway
yes.
back in, please. Are there any other items? At this time? Nope, not at this time. Okay. Attorney Dunkiel, your report?
No report.
Your report, okay. Village manager's report?
My past few weeks have been pretty much busy with the auditors and working with finance, and that's kept me going, but we got that 2016 audit done, so that's a good thing. Currently, we are being audited also by CITT, and they're auditing us from 2008 to 2016, and so we are working to get all of the information prepared for them. I met with the auditor yesterday, spent a few hours with her to begin the field work, and so we're continuing with that. Continuing to work with H2O regarding our FEMA reimbursement. It's been over a week now since FEMA's asked us any questions. We are still at the CRC level. Hopefully it will go from there to the state of Florida. Hopefully it'll be approved at the CRC level, go to the state of Florida, and then we can start working on getting their answers and getting reimbursed from them. I'd love to give you a timeline on that. Unfortunately, we don't have that yet. No one seems to know how long it'll be at FEMA. No one seems to know how long it'll be at the state of Florida yet, that I've been able to find.
Do we need to deal with the financial implications of that eventually? Well, I'll come back to that. I'm sorry,
We
finish
can-
your report. We'll
yeah,
go
we
after
can
that. Sorry, go ahead.
Find it out. I also attended a SMART meeting regarding the Bright Line yesterday. And one of the things that came up is the quiet zones. And so they currently anticipate that the construction will be completed so that the quiet zones can be implemented by the end of summer. And so the horns will hopefully stop by then. That's the latest information I have on that, though, because we were sure to check that out. And so, I'm sorry? Oh. Let's see, we received the list from the auditors today to begin the 2017 audit. Sharon, who has been doing a phenomenal job at putting this all together. She's currently, I believe, in June of 2017 in her reconciliations and preparations. So she anticipates being done with that by July 31st. And we'll be moving forward as quickly as possible. And of course, we'll prepare for that in the meantime. Finally, we have arranged a special pickup from Waste Pro for Saturday, June 16th. And so we'll be sending out more information about that to all the residents. And that's pretty much my report.
Okay, any questions for the manager? Go ahead.
Only because we haven't stated publicly what the property assessor's office
Oh, yes, I'm
has
sorry.
given us. If you need the copy, I can pass you this.
We received our notice from the property assessors, and last year our property value was 195,000 or million, and this year we're at 215 million, or 217 million, excuse me. And so we've gone up 11.2% this year, and our property values have gone up, which is great. We are delighted to hear that. So we're continuing to move up.
I know there was some confusion on that. When your property values go up, your tax and ad valorem go up, which helps our budget.
It does.
But one of the challenges we're going to face in the next election is a proposed homestead exemption that will cost us, Mr. John, please make sure if I'm correct on this, $300,000. Is that correct? If it's approved. And so to the property's value going up, it will help with the other side, assuming it does pass, which I'm hoping it does not, but we'll see. So thank you for bringing that, Commissioner
Well,
Ross.
we have to prepare for it as if it will.
Yes,
so.
we do. The only other question I had as a financial one, and this is my concern, is while we have almost $1 million out from the previous storm, and we're still on that ever so uncomfortable treadmill of we don't know when we're going to get it back, or at least portions of it back, 80% or so. My concern is to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're cash flow or have a situation with cash flow. So are we going to need to get a line of credit? Or I know the manager's already been working on that. So.
Right. As your auditor said, the preference in the field or in the industry is 3 months operating, which we call first quarter. Is a good standard for your reserves. Obviously, more than that is better. Slightly more than that, I always argue. The domino that falls with the audit being finished last week is the bank negotiation opens up for us, and that will resolve some of the cash issues. And when we get that back to you, or when we finish that piece, we'll have a better sense of what our available credit is. I think the new bank that is a better candidate to help us if that were necessary. I'm not saying it's necessary. I'm saying that you'll have a better avenue with that negotiation in the restructuring of the loan. That'll free up a significant piece of cash.
And the other issue I know is with FEMA, you can apply for grants, which we didn't this time.
Right.
But I just want to make sure the public is aware that hurricanes, as you know, are incredibly costly and cash flow up front. So if you want to discuss the FEMA grants a little bit, just to make sure.
Oh, absolutely. FEMA does provide emergency grants, and we fortunately were in a good position with our reserves last year that we didn't need to apply for those. Going forward, I mean, if we had a hurricane, next week, and we hadn't received our money back from FEMA, we could do that. Additionally, as Paul stated, we are going to apply for, have a line of credit with the bank, so that gives us another option as well. Realistically, for emergencies, if we had, a hurricane or 2 hurricanes in 1 year, that would give us, some more options there.
Exactly.
And I
keep
also
things
I also
going.
know you've worked on or finished. I think you finished RFPs to go out for. You want to talk about that a little bit?
We've worked on both of them, RFPs for the debris hauling and the monitoring, and so they're not quite complete yet, but they'll be going out shortly. So they'll be going out hopefully have them out by the end of the week.
Okay, so they'll hopefully could be coming back up in July for us, correct? Okay, if you need a special meeting, let us know.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I've seen other cities already start to advertise for their debris removal and monitoring contracts, so to make sure that we have those in place because we're already in the season. Something I wanted to point out to you, I don't know if you've seen it, but the Florida League puts out information about grants that are out there. And right now, FEMA is offering some hurricane mitigation, storm mitigation grant money. The application period is open until August 6th, and that may be a good opportunity for us to get, whether it's a gas generator or just a more substantial generator for our emergency operations center, village hall, police station, anywhere we might need that.
Absolutely.
As long as they're offering the money, I think that we should take them up on the offer.
Agreed. Thank you.
And I just wanted to mention, Paul, when you were talking about credit opportunities, that not every city has this, but our city requires an ordinance with 2 readings before we take on debt.
Right.
So just in your planning, you want to give yourself enough lead time
Right.
to be able
Yeah,
to
it
have
might-
those hearings.
You can, since I wasn't familiar with how the bank process was negotiated, I was under the impression that that was part of their arrangement was to take that loan out and to restructure it. To me, that would be it would be a saving. So I don't know how that would play out, but I appreciate that input. But that was my understanding. I might have it wrong, but.
And, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Johnson-Sidel.
We're on hurricanes. I just want to ask, I know that, I think our last meeting, we were discussing site location for debris. Where are we on that? Have
We have
looked
not
into-
found any viable sites in the area just outside of the village. Currently, we have received our permitting from Durham to use the rec center field if necessary. And so, I'm continuing to look for areas outside of the village as well and ask around and see what we can find. But, you know, it's an urban area. There's not a lot of large spaces that aren't adjacent to residential areas.
Did you have any luck discussing with Durham any other possibilities for reconsideration of some of the things we're going to have to do because part of the problem is you can plan all you want in these storms. At the end of the day, it turns out what got damaged, whether we have structural damage, whether we have just debris damage, and then how to deal with it is oftentimes, as you know, quite, it's not something you can always prepare for.
No, I
So-
mean, the reality is that it's literally firefighting because every hurricane's going to be different. Every situation's going to be different. We can, you know, while we don't want to put debris in a median like we had to this year, like on 114th Street, if we find after the next storm that another median has lost most of its trees and is suddenly clear, that may be a viable option. And so as opposed to tearing up the rec field, in which point we would, you know, contact Durham and try and do a quick permit for that, an authorization for that. But again, we'd want to keep it as far away from, you know, residents as possible as well.
The other thing that I had heard somebody suggest, and that is on one of the things that slowed down our debris was we were able to push everything where it needed to go, but then it took a while for us to get a chipper. And I know that seemed to be one of the challenges in terms of, and you don't want to chip it so you can haul it, right?
Right.
But one of the things I would consider in looking at some of these companies, if they have chippers that go directly into the trucks, rather than chipping, leaving in place. In some of these other companies, I've heard of chippers that actually go directly into the truck, so you chip as you go. So this also reduces any fire risk or any smoke risk or having to deal with the monitoring of those piles. So that's some other suggestion I would look into. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Since there's no board committee members here, there's any further comments from any of the commissioners? Okay. Yes?
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to mention, and I'm sure you'll get the Florida League of Cities emails, but they're looking for signups for the legislative policy committees. I participated in a policy committee for the last 3 years, and it was enlightening It was a very fulfilling process and also provided a lot of opportunities to get to know what other cities are doing and challenges they're facing and how they overcome them. So I encourage you to sign up for a committee and be a part of their legislative policy and lobbying process. And that's it.
Okay.
Oh, just one more thing. The annual conference for the Florida League is in August, mid-August, and it's just up the road in Hollywood. It's a great opportunity to, again, get information, be informed, and gain the tools to make good decisions for the city.
Thank you. Okay, announcements?
Yes. We have a planning and zoning board meeting on Monday, June 4th, 2018, 6:30 p.m. On Monday, code compliance is June 11, 2018, 7 p.m. I'm sorry, Biscayne Park Foundation on Monday, June 11, 2018, 7 p.m. Public Art Advisory Board Wednesday, June 13, 2018, 6 p.m. Planning and Zoning Advisory Board on Monday, June 18, 2018, 6:30 p.m. Parks and Parkway Advisory Board on Thursday, June 21st, 2018, 7 p.m. Planning and Zoning Advisory Board on Monday, July 2nd, 2018, 6:30 p.m. Biscayne Park Foundation on Monday, July 9, 2018, 7 p.m. And Code Compliance Monday, July 9, 2018, 7 p.m. And our next regular commission meeting is July 10th, 2018, 7 p.m.
Thank you. I know they're also talking about maybe changing the Mango Festival dates because we've had so much rain, so keep an eye out for that date forthcoming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
Aye.